Welcome to Jammin' with Jason Mefford, a show where we discuss topics relevant to chief audit executives and professionals in audit, risk, and compliance. We discuss the technical and soft skills needed to navigate the minefields of organizations. You hear best practices and practical advice for helping you advance your career, and we'll even talk about music, mindfulness, and psychology, because we can. So sit back and relax while you listen to the #1 podcast in the world for internal auditors, unscripted and unedited. Welcome to another episode of Jamming with Jason. Hey everybody, welcome back. I thought this week I would actually do a little public service announcement, or what some people call a PSA, public service announcement. And the reason for that is, as you can see from the title, I have Welcome to the Jungle of Online Training. And, in this pandemic situation that we're in, you can look around and pretty much everybody and their dog is now all of a sudden offering some sort of online training where they never did a month or so ago. Now, there's obvious reasons for that. But as I've looked around and I've kind of seen some of the things that are being put out there, I thought it would be good to just go through and explain a little bit about the online training space. And the reason for that is, I know many of you have probably done some stuff online, but now, especially with a lot of the quarantine and, type of stuff where you're working from home, a lot of you are looking into that more. And there's some confusing terms that are out there. And so I want to just kind of go through and talk to you about that, explain what some of these terms mean so that you really know what you're kind of getting into. Because again, as I said, everybody and their dog now all of a sudden is doing stuff, virtually online. And they're throwing terms out there that I know may be a little confusing for some of you. And I say everybody and their dog because there's a lot of people out there. And honestly, some of them are a little bit of dogs. It's not really that good of content because they're just getting started in this space. Now, I've been in the online space for at least probably about 10 years now. And with C-Risk Academy, we've been running a virtual, a learning platform for at least the last 4 years. So I'm very comfortable in this space. And like I said, I just want to make sure and give you some information, explain what some of these terms are, because what you're going to find is anytime that we have a little upset, as we're seeing right now, excuse me, there's a lot of people that are kind of fly by night. They show up, they kind of jump in, take advantage of the opportunity. When things get back to normal in a few months, they may not be around. Okay. And so again, as I'll go through and talk about some of these different terms, but also give you some things to think about so that you know what you're getting yourself into, or what you should be able to expect by some of the terms that people are using. Now, I used, the Welcome to the Jungle because if any of you are also hairband, 80s hair metal fans like me, or like Guns N' Roses, actually the first verse of this song is pretty fitting for what kind of frenzy is going on out there right now. So if you remember, right, welcome to the jungle, we've got fun and games. We've got everything you want, honey. We know the names. We are the people that you find, whatever you may need. If you've got the money, honey, we got your disease, right? And that actually kind of accurately describes what a lot of people do in these times. They tell you that they've got whatever you need, even if they don't. But if you've got the money, honey, we've got your disease. We'll figure out how to provide whatever it is that you want. So let's jump in and talk about some of these different terms that get thrown out there and what they mean. Now, there is a difference between learning and training. And so again, sometimes, most of the time you'll see the word training. And if you remember before when I've talked about knowledge, skills, the case model, knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience, how we really need all four of those, in fact, to be able to learn. Now, training normally only focuses on providing you skills and knowledge, where a learning platform actually provides you opportunities to do all four of those and actually really learn the information. So if you see people using words like learning platform, you're going to know that they're more interested in you actually learning the information instead of just showing up and giving you some knowledge and skills and then they're gone. Okay. Now there's terms online versus virtual. Now those two terms are usually used interchangeably. So online means usually you're doing it online through the internet. Virtual, again, you're doing it online. So those two terms are usually pretty synonymous. So if somebody says they're doing online or they're doing virtual, it means you're doing it through the computer. Now that is different from what usually the term is in person, which means you're physically in the room with other people. And so again, now that, a lot of you can't travel, a lot of the in-person training has been canceled. So people are switching from in-person to virtual or online. Okay. Now, I'll come back and I'll talk a little bit more of those, because now as we start talking about some more of these terms, we're going to put them together and actually share with you what that actually means too. Another couple of terms to talk about: webinar versus a course. Now, again, many of you are probably familiar with webinars. You sign up for a webinar, it shows at a particular date and time. So you get on your computer, you watch at a particular date and time. Most webinars are actually done, like I said, at a particular date and time. A course is, again, can be something that is online or in person, but in a course, it is usually, there's more modules to it. It's not just one particular thing or one topic like you might actually get in a webinar, okay? Now I'm going to start putting some of these words together because, again, you see people say things like on-demand webinar, live webinar, or webinar. And what does this actually mean? What is the difference between these three? Now, an on-demand means that you can get it when you want to. So you don't have to wait for a particular date and time. Anytime it's on demand, meaning you can go out and actually, sign up and watch whatever it is right then. So on-demand webinars are usually, it is a webinar format, so usually 1 hour or 2 hours that someone has previously recorded, and they're allowing you to go out and watch it when you want to instead of at a particular date and time, okay? Now, a live webinar is where the people that are actually doing the webinar are talking live. So, excuse me, a lot of times they'll answer questions, do things, during that particular time, because they're literally online at exactly the same time you are. Now, most webinars now are what are called previously recorded webinars. Even though you show up at a particular date and time, those conversations have usually been recorded beforehand. Now, a lot of that is just because, again, of the technology and wanting to make sure that there aren't issues with the technology, because sometimes live events have issues. So again, if you think about, if you go to a live play as opposed to a recorded movie, the movie has all been edited, everything works just right. If you go to a live play, somebody could fall down, somebody could forget their lines, different things like that, okay? So from a webinar standpoint, as I said, most of the time, webinars are actually previously recorded, even though they don't say that. So the only difference between an on-demand webinar and a regular webinar is you get to show up and do it when you want to, instead of at the particular date and time. Okay. Now, with a webinar, usually what that is it's one opportunity to watch whatever it is. Okay. So think about this. I want you to think about this is a great analogy. A webinar is like going to the movie theater. So if you want to go see the latest movie, you look up in your movie at the movie theater and see what date and time this is playing. You go and you buy a ticket, or there's free webinars as well. So you just have to have a ticket to show up at that particular date and time. You go in, you watch the movie, you leave. You get one opportunity to watch that movie. So again, usually that is what webinars are. It's a once and that's it. So the problem is if you decide, hey, I really liked that, well, I'm sorry, you don't get to watch it again usually. Okay, that's how webinars typically work. Now, if we compare webinars with what are called regular on-demand, again, on-demand means you can get access to that knowledge when you want to. There are on-demand courses as well, right? And again, depending on how things are set up, and I'll talk about that in a little bit here, because there's some things that you want to be looking at when you're considering online training, as far as some of the things that the provider actually gives you. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But let me go back again and kind of, summarize what we've learned so far, and then we're going to learn a couple more topics, and then I'll pull it all together for you. So again, the difference between learning versus training. Training is just giving you knowledge and skills. It's usually they just give it to you. You have to figure out how you're going to, actually assimilate that and develop your abilities, and how you're going to get the experience and put that into practice, right? Online versus virtual, those are pretty much the same term. It means you're doing stuff with the computer. Webinars versus courses, again, usually webinars are a one and done. The courses may be one and done as well. That's one of the things that we'll talk about here in just a minute. So on demand, again, usually means that you're able to go out and take the course or consume the content whenever you want to. So if we go back to our movie ticket example, I said webinars are like a movie ticket. You show up at a particular time and place, and you get that content once and done. Now, the difference usually between an on-demand webinar or a webinar versus an on-demand course is usually the course you are allowed to, or you have access to it for longer. So it's not just one and done. It's like instead of having a movie ticket and going to see that show one time, you actually have access to the movie. You've bought the movie. It's like buying the DVD. And I know most people don't buy DVDs anymore, but think about like if you're buying a movie through Apple, right? You can choose to rent the movie, which would be like a webinar, or you can choose to purchase the movie, which would be like some of these on-demand courses where you can go back and look at them as many times as you would like to. Now, let me ask you, is there a difference in the pricing on renting versus buying? And of course, the answer is yes. Usually to rent, where you're only watching it one time, it's cheaper than it is to buy it. But most of the time, if you think you're going to look at it more than once, it usually makes more sense to just purchase it instead of just renting the movie. So that just happened actually this week. My family watched Jojo Rabbit again. We saw it in the movie theater. We really liked the movie. And so we knew we were going to buy it when it came out and was available. And so we were watching it the other night, and again, the prices came up. I could rent it for $5.99 or I could buy it for $9.99. Well, of course, I'm going to buy it because I know I wanted to watch it the second time, I'm probably going to go back and watch it again a third, fourth, and fifth time. So even though it's a little bit more expensive for me to buy it, it's actually cheaper and a better investment for me to do that. And so that's one of the things you want to think about as well as you're looking at online training. Is this something you only want once, or do you think you're going to want it more than one time? And again, learning platforms will provide you different opportunities for that. And I can kind of explain how CRIS does that here in just a minute as well. A couple of other terms that you might hear. Sometimes people talk about online forums or online summits. So what's the difference between those two? Well, usually an online summit is kind of like a virtual conference. And so again, people that are used to putting on conferences may call it a virtual conference, where in the online space, most people usually refer to that as an online summit. So usually a summit brings together experts from different areas. You sign up for the summit, which is usually, a half a day, full day, maybe a day and a half or 2 days. You show up online and you watch the presentations from different experts. And so it's effectively like an online conference, okay? And again, a lot of people that are used to using the word conference now are just saying online conference instead of summit. So if you see both of those terms, if you see somebody saying summit, it's an online conference, or if you see somebody saying online conference, it's really a summit, okay? Now, the difference between a summit and a forum is usually a forum has a discussion aspect to it. And so what ends up happening is usually there is audience participation in it. So as an example, you may have a presentation from an expert on a particular topic. Then people break up into these breakout rooms, maybe talk about it, and provide feedback from the audience as well. Usually, like I said, conferences and summits are usually a one-way communication. People are giving you the information, versus a forum. There is usually a back and forth where you're actually having discussions with the experts as well. Okay, so that's, again, a couple of the other terms that you're probably seeing out there. Now, as I told you at the beginning, this is really kind of a public service announcement for everybody, because I know it can be a little bit confusing because all these different terms are coming at you. So one thing, if you can do me a favor, is share this with your friends and colleagues as well. Because again, we need to get the word out there so people actually know what they're getting themselves into, because I don't want people, buying something and then realizing it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And so please share this episode with your friends and colleagues as well. Now, here's some stuff for you to consider and think about as you're looking at some of these different online training options, right? You want to look at, is this something that you only have access to one time, or is this something that you have lifetime access to? Because again, if you're going through and trying to learn something, the reality is you're probably going to need to review it a couple of times. We learn through repetition. And so again, if it's really something that you want to learn, you're going to want to look for something that allows you this lifetime access. The equivalent of buying the movie instead of just renting it. Now, depending on the learning platform, what ends up happening sometimes is you do have an option. So for example, CRISC Academy, if you watch one of the webinars and you really love it and you want access to it, usually they will give you, and they do give you, a discounted price. If you came to the webinar, you showed up, and you decide, you know what, I'd like to have lifetime access to that, they usually give you a discount for that. So everybody that registers for the webinar has the opportunity to buy the course for cheaper than the normal price, okay? And again, that's because CRISC Academy is a learning platform. They want you to learn. They don't want to just show up and give you content once and then leave you on your own. They want to help you through the whole learning experience. So again, as you're looking at things, figure out, is this something you're going to only have one access to, or is this something that you're going to have lifetime access to? Another one is to look at, because I told you at the top, everybody and their dog is doing this. And honestly, some of the online stuff is a dog. It's not very good information. And sometimes people will charge you, you'll pay them, you go through the training or the course and find out this really was a big waste of my time. And it didn't, accomplish or give me what I thought it was going to. Now, most online providers do not refund your money. Most of them take the money and run. That's a reference to a Steve Miller song, Take the Money and Run, okay? But so again, one of the things you want to be looking at is, does this actually offer a guarantee, or are you stuck with what you buy? Now, again, if it's a fly-by-night place, they're probably going to take your money and they're not going to give you a refund because they're just worried about making the money. Now, contrast that with, again, somebody like Sea Risk Academy. They provide a 30-day money-back guarantee on all of their courses. Why? Because they know their information is not crap, okay? So if you go out and you take the course and you realize, you know what, this didn't do what I thought I wanted it to do, or it wasn't what I thought it was, they will gladly give your money back within 30 days. Most online providers do not do that. So you want to look again, are you on the hook for it, or is there a guarantee? Because again, people that are giving a guarantee usually have higher quality content, and they're going to be around for you in the future because they actually run this as a real business, right? So again, think about this as if you go to a store or any place else. If you go in and buy something, you're not happy with it. Some stores tell you, tough luck, you're out of luck. I'm not giving you your money back. But the real reputable stores will gladly give you your money back or exchange it, or they all have different refund policies. But a company that's really in this for the long term is going to offer some sort of guarantee. So look and see if you're going to get that. Now, again, you want to think about too, is this something that I want to have to show up at a specific date and time for, or would I prefer to just do it at my own leisure? That's another thing that you need to consider, right? There's lots of free webinars that are out there, but it requires you to show up at a particular date and time. Now, again, if something happens and you miss it, it's as if you bought the movie ticket, and if you don't show up, well, I'm sorry, but you kind of missed it, right? So these are kind of three things that I think you should be considering as you're hacking your way through the jungle and trying to figure out what online training or learning is going to be best for you. So again, ask yourself, is this something that I only get to view once, or do I have lifetime access to it? Okay. Second question, is there a guarantee associated with it, or am I stuck with whatever I get? And the third one is, do I want to show up at a particular date and time, or do I want to just purchase it and be able to access it on demand whenever I want? Okay, so that hopefully will give you, and as I said, again, we went through some different terms that you'll be seeing out there, that as you're looking through this and trying to figure out what's going to be best for you. Now, as I've told you before, don't just take something because it's free. If it's not going to benefit you in your career, don't waste your time on it, because time is something you cannot get back, okay? And so again, I want you to make sure that you're actually getting information that's going to benefit you in your life and in your career, okay? Because again, if you stop and think about it, I know a lot of people have really been kind of trained to look for free training. But I would ask you, do you do everything else for free? Do you only look for free books? Do you only look for free food? And the idea of that is just kind of ludicrous, right? That we purchase and we do the things that actually are a value to us, something that's going to improve our life, and actually, especially when it comes to learning and training, these are things that are important because your brain, that little thing up inside your head, is your most valuable asset. And the more you learn, the more your earning potential is going to increase. And that really is your asset in this digital space. So make sure that you're filling it with things that are good, high quality content and things that are relevant for you. Okay, my friends. So we've kind of come through this, talked about a lot of these different topics that are out there. But again, I know that, podcasts are kind of a one-way communication. So if you have questions about today's episode, make sure and connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a personalized request. And when you do, then we can connect and we can actually direct message back and forth as well. So again, good luck out in the jungle of online training. If you've got questions, reach out to me through LinkedIn. And again, as I mentioned kind of midway through, this is really intended. It's just me kind of talking. I wrote down a few words that I kind of wanted to talk through, kind of unscripted with you. But view this as really a public service announcement because I want you to know what you're getting into. I want you to ask yourself those 3 questions every time you're looking at getting some sort of training, because I want to make sure that you get what you're expecting and you get that high quality information. So with that, my friends, I'm going to sign off this week, and I'll catch you on a future episode of Jammin' with Jason. Have a great week. And that's a wrap. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Jamming with Jason. Keep on rocking in the audit world. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you later on the next show. If you'd like to earn continuing professional education for listening to today's episode, head on over to C-Risk Academy at ondemand.criskacademy.com. And that's C as in the letter C, riskacademy.com. Not only do you get a CPE certificate, but you also will have access to the video version of today's show. The views and opinions expressed on this show are that of the individuals and not of their respective organizations.